Now, Sudan's army chief has said he's willing in principle to hold talks with his paramilitary rival to end the civil war which broke out in April. General al-Burhan, who's head of the Sudanese armed forces, said he was ready in principle to sit down with Mohamed Dagalo, leader of the Rapid Support Forces. The two men have been fighting a brutal war which the UN says has left more than 5,000 people dead, with more than 5 million displaced. Our diplomatic correspondent James Landale spoke to him in New York, and he began by asking him why neither side appeared to be willing to engage in peace talks.
We have the desire and the will to end this war. We know the suffering of the Sudanese people. We know the atrocities committed against the Sudanese people. We are ready to engage in negotiations whenever.
Are you prepared to sit down and talk with the RSF leader, Hemeti?
If the leadership of this mutinous forces has the desire to return to its senses and pull its troops out of the residential areas and return to its barracks, then we will sit with any of them.
But in principle, are you ready to sit down and talk with him?
Absolutely. Whenever he commits to what we agreed in Jeddah, we will sit to resolve this problem.
Are you confident of victory?
Definitely.
If you are so confident of victory, why have you relocated and withdrawn to Port Sudan, effectively giving up Khartoum?
In Khartoum, diplomatic missions, the ministries, and all government organs can not carry out their duties as normal because it is a war zone. There are snipers and military operations taking place.
Your army is accused of killing civilians by the United Nations, by NGOs. Why are the civilian casualties so high? Why are your forces deliberately targeting civilians?
This is not correct. There are fabrications of some stories by the rebel forces. They bomb civilians and film it as if it was the armed forces. We are professional forces. We work with precision and select our targets in areas where only the enemy is present.
Is the future of Sudan a failed state like Somalia or a divided state like Libya?
The Sudan will remain united. The Sudan, because of its sons, will remain a state intact, not a failure state.
Well, shortly after speaking to General al-Burhan, James Landale sent us this assessment of the Sudanese army leader's aims while he was attending the UN General Assembly in New York.
General al-Burhan is on a global diplomatic tour, trying to drum up some kind of international legitimacy, and that's why his language is incredibly positive. He says he's in favour of peace. He says that he's willing to discuss ceasefires. He's confident of victory. But language like this, very positive language, in past months has not led at any stage to a lessening in the fighting. So I don't think we should expect any kind of peace talks anytime soon. What I think the General really wants is more international engagement, an engagement that is more supportive of him. That's why he is denying, against all the evidence, that his forces are targeting civilians. The UN says very explicitly that they are. But the problem is that the world is distracted by other issues at the moment. Ukraine, global economic woes. And so its focus is not on the fighting in Sudan. If you talk to diplomats here at the United Nations in New York and you ask them about Sudan, they just throw their hands up in some frustration. It is not a conflict that they are confident of influencing. But I think the big problem, the big risk, is that the fighting spills out over the borders of Sudan and fuels regional instability. And I think if that happens, then this war will then rise very fast up the international agenda.